Let's talk about Frida Kahlo. We're going to look past all the tote bags and the t-shirts to try and decode one of the most famous and, maybe one of the most misunderstood artists of the 20th century. So let's get right into it. You've seen this face everywhere, right? The flowers in her hair, that iconic unibrow. Her image has become this massive global brand. It stands for art, for feminism, for a kind of defiant beauty that you can find on, well, just about everything. But what if that version of Frida, the one on the coffee mug, actually buries the real story? What if it hides the incredibly smart, deeply political narrative that she painted into every single canvas? The story she really wanted to tell is like a language of symbols. And today, we are going to learn how to read it. To really understand her art, we have to start where she did, and that's with pain. You see, her artistic journey didn't begin in some fancy studio. It began in a hospital bed, where her own body became her very first and most enduring canvas. When she was only 18 years old, she was in this horrific bus accident. A metal handrail went right through her body, just shattering her spine, her collarbone, her ribs, her pelvis. It's a miracle she survived. And during that long, agonizing recovery, her dad gave her a special easel. She couldn't move, so she painted the only thing she could see, herself. That one horrific moment of trauma was the spark for her entire career as an artist. And what's so fascinating is how she connects that physical trauma to her emotional suffering. Her relationship with the famous muralist Diego Rivera, it was incredibly passionate, sure, but it was also just filled with turmoil. For Frida, the pain of his betrayals felt just as real, just as visceral as the injuries from that bus crash. So how did she turn all this pain into a visual language? Well, she didn't hide it. No way. She put it right out there on the canvas for everyone to see. She used exposed anatomy. You'll see hearts, spines, arteries, to make her invisible pain totally visible. And those corsets and braces she always wore, those weren't symbols of weakness. For her, they were symbols of resilience, of survival. She literally transformed scars and blood, all this medical trauma, into artistic triumph. But her story isn't just about personal pain, not at all. It's also this incredibly deep expression of her national identity. You could say her art was woven from the very fabric of Mexico itself. So after the Mexican Revolution, there was this huge cultural movement called Mexicanidad. And the whole point was to shake off centuries of European colonial influence and build a new identity based on Mexico's own rich indigenous history. This idea is absolutely key to understanding what Frida was doing. A perfect example of this is her famous Tijuana dress. Now, this was not just a fashion choice, it was a political act. By wearing the traditional dress of the women from Tehuantepec, who were known to be powerful, part of a matriarchal society, she was basically rejecting European beauty standards and celebrating a piece of Mexico she saw as pure, as uncorrupted. She also pulled a ton of power from Mexico's ancient past. She filled her paintings with symbols from Aztec and other pre-Columbian cultures. You'll often see the Aztec goddess Coatlicue, who was both a creator and a destroyer, this powerful symbol of the duality of life and death. For Frida, who lived so close to death herself, this was a way to place her own life, her own struggle, into a much larger, cosmic story. Now, this deep connection to her Mexican roots also fueled the third major layer of her work, her role as a political revolutionary. Her art wasn't just personal, and it wasn't just cultural. It was a weapon. Okay, let's be really clear about this. Frida Kahlo was a committed, lifelong communist. She even hosted the exiled Russian revolutionary Leon Trotsky. She truly believed that everything she did, her paintings, her life, her actions, should all serve the cause. This was not a phase, it was the absolute core of her identity. And her political ideas got even sharper when she and Diego moved to the United States in the 1930s. Imagine being in Detroit, the very heart of American industry, surrounded by the giant power of capitalism, but also the incredible suffering of the Great Depression. She saw people starving while the rich threw these lavish parties, and that experience just filled her with rage. You can see this critique just perfectly in her painting, Self-Portrait on the Borderline. Look at the contrast here. On one side, you have Mexico. It's all pyramids, fertile earth, living things. On the other side, the United States is nothing but Ford smokestacks, skyscrapers, and cold, sterile machinery. And there she is, standing right in the middle, making it pretty darn clear where her heart lies. As her health got worse and worse, her politics became even more fused with her physical self. She actually painted the hammer and sickle, the symbol of the communist revolution, directly onto the plaster corset that was holding her broken body together. Think about that. She was literally wearing her political beliefs, merging her personal pain with her hope for a revolution. So, if she was a painter of pain, a champion of Mexican identity, and a political revolutionary, how did we end up with that simplified icon we talked about at the beginning? Well, a big part of the answer is how her work was interpreted after she died. A lot of art historians point out that critics and collectors just ignored the politics. They focused on her life story, the pain, the exoticism. It was easier to digest, I guess. Her art was pretty much depoliticized. And that whole process created what we now call Frida mania. It gave us the face on the t-shirt, but it stripped away the fierce, brilliant, revolutionary artist who painted with such purpose. It turned a complex woman into a simple commodity, which, as a lifelong communist, is something she almost certainly would have despised. The story Frida Kahlo really wanted to tell is all there, written in a language of corsets and roots and revolutions. She gave us all the clues. So now that you can read the symbols, what story do you see? Thanks for joining us.